The cold wind cut through the streets of Manhattan, carrying the smell of snow and Christmas. Outside the Grand Montgomery Hotel, Ava Ross stood, her thin coat barely keeping out the cold. She held a worn-out photograph in her hands, the corners bent from being looked at so many times. It was a picture of her, much younger, with a man she once thought would be the one. A man who promised her forever, Daniel Montgomery. Her heart hurt as she stared at the photo, but there was also a fear she couldn't shake. 6 years. 6 long years of searching. 6 years of silence. She didn't know how much longer she could hold on. "Mommy, I'm cold." A small voice broke her from her thoughts. Ava looked down at her 5-year-old son, Eli, pressing against her side. His twin sister, Mia, was asleep in her arms, her little face pale and sickly from the exhaustion that had taken over her body. Eli had been sick for a while, but 2 weeks ago, the doctors had given them the worst news. He had a rare blood disorder. Without a bone marrow transplant, Eli didn't have much time, 3 months at most. Ava tried not to cry, but it was hard. She had promised Eli she would find help, but she didn't know how. "Just a little longer, baby," she whispered, brushing his hair back. "Mama's going to find help. I promise." Before we continue, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, tell us where you are watching from, like and share to support our channel's growth. The truth was, she didn't know where else to go. She hadn't found his father, Daniel Montgomery, in all these years, no matter how hard she searched. After one perfect night together, he had disappeared. When she tried to find him, she discovered the truth. Daniel was the heir to one of the richest families in the country. He was untouchable. His family had made sure she knew that girls like her, poor, with no education, from the wrong side of town, had no place in their world. Ava had raised the twins alone in a small apartment, working 3 jobs to keep them fed and safe. She never asked for help, never complained. But now, her son was dying, and pride meant nothing anymore. Tonight, on Christmas Eve, she stood outside the Montgomery Hotel, hoping Daniel might be here for the family's big Christmas party. Maybe, just maybe, she could find him. Maybe he could help. "Excuse me, miss." A stern voice cut through the air. Ava looked up to see a security guard standing at the entrance, blocking her way. "You can't stand here. This entrance is for hotel guests only." Ava swallowed hard, shaking. She had to do this. She had no choice. "Please, I just need to speak to Daniel Montgomery. Just for 1 minute. It's about his son," she pleaded, her voice cracking. The guard raised an eyebrow. "Lady, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but Mr. Montgomery doesn't have any kids. Now, move along before I call the police." Ava's heart sank. She couldn't stop. She wouldn't stop. She pulled out the photograph from her pocket, holding it up to him. "Please. Look, this is proof. This is a picture of us together. 6 years ago." The guard barely glanced at it. "That could be anyone. Mr. Montgomery takes pictures with hundreds of people. Now, move along, or I'll call the cops." Ava's throat tightened. She needed this man to believe her. She couldn't give up now. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "My son is dying. He needs his father's bone marrow." The guard stepped forward, grabbing her arm roughly. "That's what they all say? You gold diggers make me sick." Eli started to cry, and Mia stirred in her arms. "Let go of my mommy," Eli shouted, kicking the guard in the leg. The guard glared at Eli, his face turning red. "You little brat," he said, raising his hand to strike Eli. Ava stepped in front of her son, blocking the guard. The blow hit her across the face, and she fell hard to the ground, still holding Mia. Eli screamed, his voice full of fear. Just then, a deep voice cut through the chaos. "What the hell is going on here?" Ava looked up, her vision blurry from tears and the pain in her face. There, standing in the entrance of the hotel, was Daniel Montgomery. He was dressed in a fancy tuxedo, looking just like she remembered, tall, dark-haired, and handsome. But his eyes were cold, and they didn't recognize her. Ava's heart skipped a beat as Daniel Montgomery's eyes scanned the scene in front of him. She saw the coldness in his gaze, the way he barely glanced at her, but it was the way his eyes moved, over her children, that sent a chill down her spine. The security guard, still holding Ava's arm, stepped back as Daniel approached. His eyes didn't soften as they fell on her. Instead, they remained cold, distant. "What's going on here?" Daniel's voice cut through the tension, the command in it forcing the crowd to step back. The guard quickly stepped aside, eager to please the powerful man. This woman was harassing guests, claiming you're the father of her children, the guard said, his voice stiff with authority. I was just removing her. Ava's stomach twisted. Father of her children. The words hit her like a slap, her heart aching with the years of longing, of waiting for Daniel to remember, to care. But his expression didn't change. He didn't recognize her. Mr. Montgomery, she said, her voice shaking with emotion, you know me. It's me, Ava. We met 6 years ago at a charity event. We spent the night together, and you promised you'd call me the next day. These children are yours, Daniel. They're Marcus and Mia, your son and daughter. A long pause followed, Daniel's cold eyes meeting hers with a look of indifference. He didn't move, didn't speak. Ava's breath caught in her throat. Was this really happening? Was he pretending he didn't know her? Pretending he didn't see it? Bastards. Daniel's voice was flat, uninterested. His words felt like a slap to Ava's soul. Ava felt the anger rise in her chest, mixing with the sadness that had been there for years. She wanted to scream, to demand he remember. She wanted him to look at his children and see the truth. These are not bastards, she said, her voice growing louder. These children are yours, Daniel. They're your flesh and blood. For the first time, Daniel's eyes seemed to flicker with something, surprise, maybe recognition. He looked at the twins, really looked at them. But then, just as quickly, he shut it down. Even if I did sleep with you, which I'm not admitting, Daniel said coldly, his voice dismissive, how do I know I'm the father? You could have been with anyone. The words hit Ava like a punch to the gut. Her chest tightened. She felt her legs shake, but she refused to fall. How could he be like this? I was a virgin when I met you, she said, fighting back tears. You were my first, my only. I never slept with anyone else. Daniel pulled out a wad of cash from his pocket, offering it to her without a second thought. Here's $500, he said, his voice lacking any hint of compassion. Use it to take care of your children and stop harassing me. If you show up here again, I'll have you arrested. Ava stared at the money he threw at her, the bills scattering in the cold wind. It felt like a slap in the face, like everything she had gone through meant nothing to him. She refused to touch it. I don't want your money, she said quietly, her voice strong despite the pain. I want you to take a DNA test. I want you to do the right thing. Please, Daniel. Our son is dying. Marcus needs a bone marrow transplant from his biological father. Please, I'm begging you. For a moment, just a moment, Ava thought she saw something flicker in Daniel's eyes. Was it doubt? Was it guilt? Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see the truth. But then the moment was gone, replaced by the sound of a woman's voice calling from inside the hotel. Jackson, darling, what's taking so long? The gala's about to start. A stunning woman, blonde and dressed in a shimmering gold dress, appeared at Daniel's side. She linked her arm through his possessively, glaring at Ava. Who's this? She asked, looking Ava up and down with clear disdain. No one, Daniel said flatly. Just a beggar. Security is handling it. A beggar with children. How sad. The woman, Sophia, Ava realized, said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. Jackson, you should give her some money. It's Christmas, after all. Sophia pulled out her own wallet and dropped a $100 bill at Ava's feet. Here you go, dear. Buy your children something nice for Christmas. Ava's hands clenched into fists. She could feel the rage boiling up inside her, but she had to stay strong. She had to keep her head. Her children were watching. No, she said, shaking her head, her voice low but firm. I don't need your money. What I need is for you to help your son. Mia stirred in her arms, her voice soft. Why doesn't Daddy want us, Mommy? Ava's heart shattered as she looked at her son, standing there with his wide eyes full of confusion. She looked at Daniel one last time, hoping for a change, hoping for a sign that he would come around. But he didn't. He turned his back on them, walking back into the warmth of the hotel with Sophia, leaving Ava and her children in the cold. Because some people forget their promises, baby, Ava said, her voice trembling. But that's okay. We don't need him. We have each other. As they walked away from the Montgomery hotel, Ava felt a heavy weight on her shoulders, but she refused to break down. Not now. Not when her children still needed her. What she didn't know was that Daniel stood in the hotel window, watching them disappear into the cold December night. And for the first time in 6 years, his mind was racing, filled with questions he had never wanted to ask. The next day, as Ava tried to carry on with the normal routine of her life, working at the diner, caring for her children, worrying about Marcus' health, The door to her apartment knocked. She opened it cautiously, unsure of who might be standing there. What she didn't expect was the woman in a professional uniform, holding a medical bag. Ms. Ross. The woman's voice was calm and businesslike. I'm from Montgomery Medical Labs. Mr. Daniel Montgomery has requested DNA samples from you and your children to establish paternity. Ava froze, her heart racing. He wants to take the test? Is this for real? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The shock made her hands tremble. This couldn't be happening. After all the years of searching, after everything she had been through, this man was finally acknowledging his children. Yes, ma'am. I have the address, the technician said, glancing at her clipboard. I'll need samples from all three of you. Ava looked at Mia and Eli, who were watching her closely. This was it. The test that could change everything. Maybe, just maybe, this was the breakthrough she had been praying for. 20 minutes later, the technician had collected the samples, and the door clicked shut behind her. Ava sat down with the twins, trying to hold back the flood of emotions that threatened to pour out. But she had to stay strong. For them. For Marcus. Eli, his voice small and hopeful, asked, Does this mean Daddy wants to meet us? Ava's heart twisted. If only it were that simple. It means Daddy wants to know if he's really your daddy. She explained gently, fighting back the tears. And if he is, then we'll figure out what happens next. But what came next didn't happen until 24 hours later, when Ava was working her shift at the diner, exhausted and mentally drained. A black car pulled up outside the window, and Ava's stomach dropped as she saw him. Daniel Montgomery stepped out, and this time, there was no coldness in his expression, no dismissive look. There was only regret. He walked into the diner, his footsteps echoing in Ava's mind, and went straight to her table. Ava, he said quietly, the name sounding foreign yet familiar. The DNA test came back. They're mine. Eli and Mia, they're my children. Ava's knees nearly gave out as she heard those words. The relief, the disbelief, flooded through her. Her son and daughter were really his. She had been right all along, but now it felt like a dream she wasn't sure she could wake up from. I know. Daniel continued, his voice breaking. I'm sorry. God, Ava, I'm so sorry. My grandmother lied to me. She told me you were a gold digger. She said you were harassing us for money. I believed her, and I was wrong. Ava nodded slowly, her eyes filling with tears. She had spent so many years thinking this moment would never come, thinking Daniel would never care. And now that he was here, it was almost too much to take in. I should have trusted you, Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. I know I messed up. But right now, I need to focus on Eli. He needs a bone marrow transplant, and I'm going to give it to him. Ava's breath caught in her throat. This was it. The moment she had dreamed of for so long. Daniel was finally doing the right thing. For Eli. I've already arranged for him to be admitted to Montgomery Medical Center tomorrow, Daniel continued. The best pediatric oncologist in the country will handle his case. Money is no object. Whatever it takes. Tears filled Ava's eyes as she felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. This was it. This was the chance her son needed to survive. Thank you, Ava whispered, her voice shaky with emotion. Thank you so much. But as grateful as she was, something in her heart still held back. This wasn't just about the transplant. It was about Eli and Mia having their father in their lives. Daniel paused before speaking again, his voice softer now. I want to be a part of their lives, Ava. I want to get to know them. I want to make up for the 6 years I missed. Ava looked at him, her heart still raw from the years of hurt. She thought about Eli, who needed his father. She thought about Mia, who deserved to know the man who had given them life. But she also thought about herself. The love she hadn't been able to let go of. The love she had tried so hard to forget. Okay, she said finally, her voice steady. But Daniel, if you hurt them again, if you disappear again, if you break their hearts, I won't forgive you. I won't. I promise, Daniel said, his voice firm. This time, I'll keep my promises. As he left the diner to make arrangements for Eli's treatment, Ava felt a flicker of hope for the first time in years. Maybe this Christmas, her family would get the miracle they so desperately needed. Montgomery Medical Center was like nothing Ava had ever seen before. The pediatric wing felt more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Bright, colorful murals covered the walls, and play areas for children were scattered around, with soft toys and video games in every corner. Even the rooms looked more like cozy apartments than sterile hospital spaces. Eli was admitted immediately. The staff led them to a beautiful suite with a separate bedroom for Ava and Mia. Eli's wide eyes took in everything around him, from the big screen TV to the small refrigerator stocked with juice and snacks. He had never seen anything like it. "Mommy, is this really a hospital?" Eli asked, his voice filled with wonder. Ava knelt down beside him, brushing the hair from his forehead. She could see the excitement in his eyes, but behind that was the fear of the unknown. "Yes, baby," she said, her voice warm and reassuring. "This is where you're going to get better. And it's because of Daddy." Eli looked up at her, his eyes searching. "Daddy?" "Yes," Ava said softly. "Because of Daddy." An hour later, Daniel arrived, carrying bags of new clothes for the twins, toys, and books to keep them entertained during their stay. He even brought his personal assistant, who immediately began coordinating everything to make sure they had everything they needed. "I've arranged for the best pediatric oncologist to take care of Eli," Daniel explained, as he unpacked the bags. "Dr. Sarah Chun. She'll be here this evening to explain the procedure. The bone marrow extraction will happen tomorrow, and if everything goes well, the transplant will be the day after." Ava blinked, overwhelmed. "That fast? Not when you're in Montgomery," Daniel said with a slight grin. "I've taken care of everything. Eli's my son. He gets the best care available immediately." Mia, who had been quietly watching, tugged on Daniel's sleeve. "Are you really our daddy?" she asked, her voice small and unsure. Daniel crouched down to her level, his face softening. "Yes, sweetheart," he said gently. "I'm really your daddy. And I'm so sorry it took me this long to find you." Mia smiled a little, and Eli's face lit up as he looked at Daniel. "Daddy," he whispered, testing the word. Then a big smile spread across his face. "Daddy, we have a daddy now." Ava's heart swelled with emotion as she watched her children embrace Daniel for the first time. She had dreamed of this moment, but seeing it happen was overwhelming. This was what she had always wanted, for Eli and Mia to know their father, for them to have the family they deserved. But in the back of her mind, she knew this couldn't last. Daniel had a life that didn't include them. He had a fiancée, a career, responsibilities. The idea of blending their two worlds seemed impossible. "Mommy, will you read us a story?" Mia asked, holding up a book from one of the bags. "Of course," Daniel said, settling into a chair between the two beds. He started to read as Ava watched from the doorway, her heart breaking and healing all at once. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel hope. Later that evening, Dr. Chin arrived. She was a kind-faced woman in her 50s who explained the bone marrow transplant procedure to Eli in simple terms. "Eli," she said, sitting down beside him, "your daddy's going to give you some of his bone marrow. It's like a factory inside your bones that makes blood. Right now, your factory isn't working well, so it's not making the right kind of blood. But your daddy's factory works perfectly. When we put some of his bone marrow into your bones, it will teach your body how to make good blood again." Eli looked at her with wide eyes. "Will it hurt?" "You'll be asleep during the procedure," Dr. Chen reassured him. "You won't feel anything. Afterward, you might feel tired and a little sore, but we'll give you medicine to help with that. And your mommy and daddy will be here with you the whole time." Mia's eyes brightened. "Can I visit him every day?" "Yes," Dr. Chun said with a smile. "We have a special playroom just for siblings. You can visit him whenever you like." Ava stood at the doorway, watching as Daniel knelt beside the twins. She could feel the knot in her stomach. This moment was everything she had wanted. But deep down, she knew it wasn't enough. She wanted a real family with Daniel. But would he still be there when things got hard? When his life pulled him away again? After the doctor left, Daniel and Ava stepped out into the hallway, their voices soft. "Thank you," Ava whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "For everything. For believing me. For helping Eli." "You don't need to thank me," Daniel said, his eyes searching hers. "He's my son." Ava shook her head. "You didn't have to do this. You could have walked away again. But you didn't. And I'll always be grateful for that." Daniel looked down at her, his voice low. "I need to explain what happened 6 years ago. Why I didn't call you. Why I believed my grandmother's lies." Ava didn't look at him. She couldn't. Not yet. Not until she was sure he wouldn't hurt them again. "You don't owe me an explanation," she said quietly. "Yes, I do," Daniel said urgently. "You deserve better than what I gave you. My grandmother lied to me. She showed me fake phone records. She hired someone to pretend to be you. She convinced me you were just trying to trap me, and I believed her. I was wrong. And I'm sorry." Ava listened, but something inside her closed off. She had heard this before. Promises. Apologies. Would this time be different? I don't know if I can trust you again, Ava said softly, but with firmness. I want to, but I need time. I'll wait, Daniel said, his voice steady. I won't give up on you, Ava. Not this time. As the night stretched on, Ava watched her children sleep peacefully. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, there was hope. A real chance for a future. And maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would be the beginning of something new. I'm happy to know that you are still here. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like, share, and tell us where you are watching from and what you feel about this story in the comment section. The next morning, Daniel kept his promise. Ava and the twins were taken to Montgomery Medical Center, where Eli was prepped for his bone marrow extraction. The hospital felt like a strange dream to Ava. Everything was so different from what she'd known, so beyond anything she ever expected. It felt like she was living in someone else's world, and yet, here she was, with her children, in a place where they might actually have a future. Eli was scared, his small hand trembling in hers as the nurses prepped him for the procedure. He kept looking up at her, his wide eyes searching for reassurance. Ava smiled through her own fear, doing her best to comfort him. Mommy, will it hurt? Eli asked quietly. Ava's heart broke at the question. How could she explain the pain he might feel, even as she reassured him? No, baby, she whispered, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. You'll be asleep. You won't feel a thing. And when you wake up, you'll be stronger. But even as she said the words, she couldn't shake the worry gnawing at her. What if the transplant didn't work? What if her son didn't survive? The doctors had been hopeful, but hope didn't always win the battle. Daniel was there, of course. He stayed by their side through every moment of the preparation, his presence a silent comfort to both Ava and the twins. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. He was trying for Eli, for Mia, for all of them. And for the first time in so many years, Ava allowed herself to lean into that hope. A few hours later, the bone marrow extraction was done. Daniel stayed with her as Eli rested, groggy and disoriented from the anesthesia. Ava held his hand, trying to reassure him, but it was Daniel's presence that made everything seem a little less terrifying. Later that evening, Dr. Sarah Chun came in to explain the next steps. She was kind and patient, answering every question Ava had, no matter how small. The bone marrow extraction went well, Dr. Chun said, her tone calm. We'll proceed with the transplant tomorrow. If all goes as planned, Eli will begin the long process of recovery. It'll be a slow journey, but we're hopeful. Ava nodded, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't know what else to say, except thank you. But the words didn't feel like enough. The weight of everything, of the last 6 years, of everything she'd fought for, was finally lifting, just a little bit. It wasn't over yet, but there was hope. There was light at the end of the tunnel. Daniel, standing by the door, watched as Ava wiped away her tears. His heart ached for her. He knew how much she had suffered, how much she had carried on her own. He had failed her once. He couldn't fail her again. That night, as the twins slept, Daniel and Ava stood in the hallway outside Eli's room. The silence between them was comfortable, but heavy with the things they still needed to say. I don't know if I can ever make up for the last 6 years, Daniel said softly, his voice full of regret. But I'm going to try. I'm going to be here for you, for Eli and Mia. I want to be the father they deserve. Ava met his gaze, her eyes soft but guarded. You can't erase the past, Daniel. I can't forget the way you turned your back on us. But you're trying. That means something. Daniel nodded, looking down at the floor, his jaw clenched. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'm not going anywhere. I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to Eli and Mia. Ava took a deep breath, weighing his words. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this time would be different. But it was hard. Too many years had passed. Too many broken promises. I'm not asking for you to fix everything, Daniel. Ava said, her voice quiet but strong. I just want you to show up. For them. For me. If you can do that, then maybe we can start again. Daniel's eyes softened, and he stepped closer to her. I'll show up. I swear. The next day, the bone marrow transplant took place. Ava sat by Eli's side the entire time, never leaving him for a moment. Daniel was there too, just a few steps behind her, making sure everything went smoothly, arranging everything so that Eli got the best care possible. The procedure was a success, and Dr. Chun was optimistic. It'll take some time for his body to accept the marrow, But I believe Eli is on the right path, she told Ava later that afternoon. The first few weeks will be critical, but we're hopeful. Ava held Eli's hand as he slept, her mind racing with the possibilities. For the first time in a long time, she let herself hope. As the days passed, Eli began to feel better. His strength slowly returned, and so did his spark. Ava stayed by his side, watching him closely as his body healed. It was still a long road, but every small step felt like a victory. And through it all, Daniel was there. Every visit, every moment, he was by their side. Sometimes it was awkward, sometimes it was uncertain, but he never left. He never gave up. Ava could see the change in him. He was starting to fight for them, for his family. But even as she allowed herself to believe in him again, a part of her was still scared. She couldn't help it. She had been hurt too many times before. But this time, things felt different. For once, she wasn't alone in this fight. It had been a week since Eli's transplant. The little boy had started to show signs of recovery. His color was returning, and he even began to eat small meals. Ava couldn't remember the last time she had felt so hopeful. But the road ahead was still long, and the fear of setbacks lingered in the back of her mind. Daniel had been with them every step of the way. He visited every day, staying for hours, talking to the doctors, and making sure Ava didn't have to face anything alone. But even with all the support, things still felt complicated. Their worlds were too different, and Ava knew it wouldn't be easy to make it work. One night, after the twins had gone to sleep, Daniel sat down beside Ava in the quiet hospital room. The silence between them was thick, neither one sure of what to say next. But Daniel had something on his mind, something he couldn't keep to himself any longer. "Ava," he said softly, his voice low, "we need to talk." Ava looked up at him, her brow furrowing. "About what?" "About us," he replied, his tone earnest. "I've been thinking a lot about what's next. About the life I want to build for you, for Eli and Mia. I know it's not going to be easy, but I want you to know. I want us to have a real future. I want you and the kids to be a part of my life. I want you to be a family." Ava's heart ached at his words. She had always dreamed of this, dreamed of having a family, of sharing her life with someone who cared for her and her children. But the reality of it was so much more complicated than she ever expected. "You have a life, Daniel," she said quietly, her voice tinged with sadness. "You have a career, a fiancé, a future. I'm just a single mom. I don't fit into your world." Daniel shook his head, his eyes filled with frustration. "That's not true, Ava. You and the kids are my world now. You've been my world from the moment I found out about Eli and Mia. I won't let anyone, not even my grandmother, tell me what I should do. I won't let them tear us apart." Ava stood up, pacing around the room. She knew Daniel was sincere, but she couldn't help feeling the weight of the differences between them. His family, his responsibilities, everything he had built, it was all so far from the world she knew. Could they really find a way to make it work? "I don't want to be just a part of your life, Daniel," Ava said, her voice shaky. "I don't want to be some secret. I don't want to be the woman who has to hide behind the walls of your world. My kids and I deserve better than that. I deserve better than that." Daniel's face softened, and he stood up, walking over to her. He reached for her hands, his grip firm but gentle. "You won't have to hide, Ava," he said, his voice steady. "You'll never have to hide again. I'll fight for you. For us. I don't care what anyone else thinks. What matters is what we want. What we need. And right now, all I need is you and the kids. You're all that matters to me." Ava looked up at him, her heart torn. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this time would be different, that Daniel was serious about building a life with her and the twins. But the fear of being hurt again lingered. "Daniel, I'm not asking for the world," Ava said softly. "I just want to know that you're really here. That you're not going to walk away when things get hard. Because they will. They always do." Daniel nodded, his expression sincere. "I'm not going anywhere, Ava. I promise." Just as the weight of his words sank in, there was a knock at the door. Dr. Chen walked in, a smile on her face, but Ava noticed the concern in her eyes. "Everything's going well with Eli's recovery," Dr. Chen said, her voice calm. "His blood counts are improving, and he's starting to show real signs of progress. But there's still a long road ahead." Ava exhaled, relief flooding her as she nodded. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. You don't know what this means to us." Dr. Chen smiled warmly. "You're welcome. But there's still one thing I need to discuss. Eli will need ongoing treatment for the next several months. He'll need regular checkups, and we'll have to monitor his recovery very closely. He's doing well, but it's important not to rush things. Ava nodded again, the weight of the situation settling in. She had hoped that Eli's recovery would be faster, but now she understood that this was just the beginning. After Dr. Chen left, Ava and Daniel sat in silence, the enormity of the future before them both daunting and uncertain. But for the first time, Ava didn't feel completely alone. She had Daniel beside her, and, for better or worse, they would face whatever came next together. Months passed, and Eli's recovery continued to be nothing short of miraculous. His strength slowly returned, his laughter filled the hospital room, and the brightness in his eyes began to shine again. Ava never took a single moment for granted. Every small victory felt like a giant leap toward the life they all deserved. Daniel was there through it all. He kept his promise. He didn't leave. He didn't go back to his old life. He stayed with Ava, with Eli and Mia, helping them rebuild what had been broken. The children began to grow closer to him, and though it wasn't easy, Ava could see the bond forming. Slowly, she was allowing herself to hope that their family could become whole again. Ava had her moments of doubt, though. She still wrestled with the fear that things wouldn't stay this way, that once the dust settled, Daniel would go back to the life he had left behind, leaving her and the children once again. But with every day that passed, he proved her fears wrong. Daniel had finally realized that family was not about wealth, power, or status. It was about love, commitment, and making the right choices. One evening, after a long day of tests and checkups, Daniel took Ava aside. They stood on the balcony of his penthouse, watching the sun dip below the horizon, the city lights twinkling in the distance. It was a quiet moment, one that had been years in the making. "Ava," Daniel said, his voice steady, "I know I've hurt you. I know I've made mistakes that can't be erased, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for them, trying to be the man you and the kids deserve." Ava's heart softened, but the scars of the past still lingered. "I want to believe you, Daniel. But you have to understand, it's not just about what you say, it's about what you do. You've made promises before." "I know," he said quietly, "but this time I mean it. I don't care about my family's fortune. I don't care about anything but being with you, being a father to Eli and Mia, and doing the right thing." Ava looked at him, her heart heavy but hopeful. "I'm scared, Daniel. I'm scared that I'll get hurt again. But I can't do this alone anymore. We have a chance at a real family. And I want to try, but you need to keep proving to me that we can make this work." Daniel nodded. "I will. I swear I will." They stood there for a long moment, the weight of their journey together and apart hanging between them. But in that moment, Ava knew something had shifted. She wasn't alone anymore. This was the family she had dreamed of, a family built on trust, on second chances, and on the love that had finally been rekindled. The following weeks were filled with small, beautiful moments. The laughter of the twins running through the house, Eli's recovery progressing faster than the doctors had hoped, and Daniel slowly becoming the man he had promised to be. And then, one snowy evening, exactly 1 year after that desperate night outside the Montgomery hotel, Ava stood in the kitchen, watching Daniel laugh with the twins as they attempted to bake cookies. The house was filled with warmth, with love, and with the noise of a family that had finally found its place. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that was enough. As Daniel walked over to her, a wide smile on his face, he wrapped his arms around her waist. "I know it's been a long road, Ava," he said softly, "but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'll never let you go again." Tears filled Ava's eyes as she looked at him, her heart full of gratitude and hope. "I know, Daniel. I know." The door opened, and the twins came running in, their faces covered in flour and frosting from the cookies they had made. They shouted in excitement, and Ava couldn't help but smile. This was the family she had always wanted. It wasn't the fairy tale she had imagined as a young woman, but it was better, because it was real. It was theirs. As they sat down to eat dinner together that evening, Ava reflected on everything she had gone through, the pain, the struggles, the heartbreak, and how, in the end, it had all led her here, to this moment, to this family. "Thank you," she whispered, looking at Daniel and the children. "Thank you for never giving up on me, for showing me that love can heal everything." "Thank you for never giving up on us," Daniel replied, squeezing her hand. "You're my home now, Ava, and I'm never leaving." The journey of life is full of obstacles. Sometimes it feels like everything is against us, like our dreams will never come true. But no matter how hard things get, giving up is never the answer. Second chances are real. People can change, they can grow, and they can rebuild what's been broken. Hope is powerful. It's what keeps us going when everything else seems impossible. Love, true, unconditional love, can heal the deepest wounds. No matter how many times you fall, it's never too late to rise again. The hardest battles bring the greatest rewards, and even through the pain, there's always room for healing. Keep fighting for what matters most: your family, your dreams, and your heart. Because in the end, love is the thing that saves us all. If you've enjoyed this story and feel inspired, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Tell us where you're watching from and what you think about this story in the comments. Your support helps us grow and share even more stories like this one. Stay hopeful, and remember, giving up is never an option.